It's time to hammer.
Now I gotta really try hard.
Shut it down! Somehow it's the best.
The YumChunks podcast.
YumChunks!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of the YumChunks podcast. Thanks for tuning in again. I'm Sean.
I'm Chris.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Vince.
Hey, we're all here. Well, Matt's not here. He'll be back, though. Don't worry. Matt couldn't be here
so
tonight.
we're all here.
Dang.
Oh,
Ouch.
snap.
Ouch.
Take that, Chewy.
Already some drama. Episode 2, and we're already hitting in a deep drama.
Stay tuned for all of the drama to come. We secretly have this underlying story that's going to go throughout this season.
You're spoiling it.
Oh, sorry.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Tonight we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about a couple things, but Quiet Place primarily. Film that came out recently. Shh, everyone quiet. Which we'll give you our thoughts on. We'll give you full, in-depth analysis, play-by-play, every quiet moment in that movie. But before that, what have people up to? People been up to?
Vince, I heard you just flew in.
I've been up to all kinds of people,
Boy,
guys. Let me tell you about it. Okay, well, I just got back from Hawaii yesterday, and let's see, I saw the island. There was some lizards and some fishes in the water. There was a big fat puffer fish that lived next to us. His name was Earl.
Checks out. That's Hawaii. He's been to Hawaii.
That's Hawaii. That's all the criteria.
If you see Earl, you know you're in Hawaii.
I actually went to a sandwich place called Earl's. This is not a product placement or advertising for it, but delicious sandwich. Delicious.
Ooh.
It had
Vince is
pork
holding
belly.
up $20
Well,
right
all
now.
of our Hawaiian listeners, check out Earl's.
Also, check out your local ABC store. You can
Oh,
find
gosh.
them on 2 on every corner.
Gosh, that's like they're like Starbucks, but for like some sort of like cheap novelty store kind of thing. That's what it is. But anyway, I almost got hit by a sea turtle. I think I stepped on a sea urchin because I had a thing on my foot for the plane ride home, and it really sucked.
Wait, what? You just had a giant spiky urchin on the foot?
Well-
You didn't notice? You didn't know what it was?
The funny thing was airport security was just like, we can't help this guy. Just put him on the plane. Send him out of here.
But now you're going to infect the mainland.
Oh, man. Hey, Ryan, do you remember? I think you were there, Ryan, when we were on Kauai and that big fat guy yelled at us.
Yeah, because we broke his plastic chain.
Look, there was.
Well, actually,
look,
we didn't break it. But...
No, we didn't. Let me preface this. Nick broke it, but first, that's my brother. But so we were just in this like weird shack thing, and there was a single plastic chain link that was just draped along these 2 poles, and my brother's like, "What is this even doing here?" And he just poked it, and it fell, and then of course the big fat guy and that has nothing to do. Him being big or fat has nothing to do with the story, but that's how I remember him as a kid. But he just started yelling at us little kids. And he just got so upset. And we were like, "We're sorry. Do you want your chain link?" And he was like, "The hell with you." And I was like, "Oh."
Man, what a story.
That's the governor of Hawaii.
That's exactly what happened.
Do you remember that, Ryan?
I do remember that. I'm so
good.
glad you brought that up for this podcast. So we can all relive that memory.
All right, good.
I'm glad
Speaking of Hawaii getting angry at you, I saw Downsizing while I was on the plane.
That made
This
you
is going to
angry.
relate somehow. It did make me angry. The fact that Matt Damon was shrunk and not murdered instead. And actually, it was a pretty good time at the movies, that Downsizing. I didn't expect it to take itself so seriously, but it kind of did. It was pretty good times.
I mean, no, I don't think anyone else. I think you're the only person I know who's seen that movie. And
It felt weird seeing it on the plane, too, because everyone was looking at me like, "What are you watching?" And I was like, "I don't want to explain."
by answering the question
All right.
with one word.
It is one word, downsizing.
Okay, well, downsizing. Recommendation
man.
from Vince.
Yeah. It was also funny because halfway through the movie, there was some turbulence, and Carter, my son, was sitting in between me and Paige. And this is like at 2 a.m, so everyone's asleep, and he just rolls right out of his seat. and he like is rolling on the floor down the aisle, and so I have to go and chase him, and he doesn't wake up the entire time, and it's great. And then I just pick him up and I hold him for the rest of the movie, and he just stays asleep.
Carter's big
What an
day out.
ending to that story.
What about you, Ryan?
No, I've never rolled down an airplane asleep.
Not while asleep? All
No,
right.
it's never
Damn.
happened.
Anyone else? Check out some movies or shows.
I feel like I kind of stole the show there. I'm sorry, everybody.
I can't follow that.
Nothing
we-
could live up to
I don't
Hawaiian
know.
plane rolling.
And sleeping babies rolling down planes.
Don't
God.
forget Earl the Pufferfish and Turtles.
What have you done since our last talk?
I've seen
Talkie
some
talk.
shows. Yeah, I saw finished Santa Clarita Diet.
That's how you pronounce it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I saw Santa Clarita Diet. Didn't make it easier. And see, I'm almost done with season 2 of the Lemony Snicket Show. And yeah, saw A Quiet Place.
Okay. Oh, did anybody watch Lost in Space?
I heard
it's,
that's good.
It's up on my list. Now that I have also finished Santa Clarita Diet and finished a series of unfortunate events. Luckily, just in time to move into what is supposed to be this really fantastic Lost in Space. So yeah, why not? Let's move into that.
I'm behind on all those shows. I've seen season 1 of Clarita Diet and Lemony Snicket, but I need to watch season 2. I'm making my way through Jessica Jones season 2 still. I'm behind. I'm so far behind.
Timothy Oliphant is just a treat.
Yeah.
That man is just a treat.
He is. He's a national treasure. I really hope he's from America. He probably isn't.
What?
He can still be a national treasure just for whatever nation he's from.
Well, yeah, but like that's
Oh,
what
you're just
people
saying
always
you
say.
don't want another country to have that treasure. You want it
Well,
to be.
Yeah, like we always say, Tom Hanks is a national treasure, and that.
What if we
I
found
mean,
out he wasn't American? What if he found out he was like from Sweden, like this whole time?
Sweet.
He wouldn't be America's sweetheart anymore.
Is Nicolas Cage a national treasure, or was he just in
No.
a national treasure?
He's
No?
just in
Why do we have every
Well,
episode has to involve us talking about national treasure?
Well, I'm setting that precedent. I think it needs to be set.
I did watch that Mute movie.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
That was quite bad.
Wait,
Yeah,
what?
it was really interesting. It's a Netflix show. It's by the same director as
Duncan Jones.
Duncan
Yeah.
Jones, who I
Moon
like,
and-
except for
yeah.
World of Warcraft. But
Yeah.
Oh,
Source code
so right now
is good.
he's
he
50-50 now. But
Yeah.
I was hopeful because it looked like it was going to be kind of like a cyberpunk noir kind of thing, and it just kind of was all over the place. Also had
Yeah.
Paul Rudd, who I also love.
And he was good in the film.
Yeah,
Oh,
and it was just a weird film. Like
It was odd.
it was just odd. It's free on
Space
Netflix,
odd,
so I
big
can't
T.
unrecommend it, but I
Yeah.
also can't recommend it.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
playing through Nino Kuni right now.
Oh yeah, I am also playing through that
It
game.
is a visual delight.
Yeah,
did you say Menahuni?
I said
Yep.
Nino Kuni, which stands
Because-
it's Japanese for another world.
Oh, Menahuni's a Hawaiian thing.
We get it,
You were
Ben.
You're just the master of Hawaii now. Right?
I am. I actually
Earl
own 40%
taught
of
you the
Hawaii.
way.
Well, their sandwiches did. I learned the truth.
Sean and I actually played through A Way Out together, which is
Oh, that's right.
a 2-player game. That was a delight from the
Yeah.
guy that created Brother: A Tale of Two Sons.
Yeah, and I loved Brothers a lot. I thought that the gameplay itself wasn't anything revolutionary, but the way it was told, and without giving away spoilers, the ending was really, really well done.
Yeah,
And so it kind of in the same vein as that game. It was a 2-player game, though. But it was definitely worth experiencing. I think Chris and I both agree, though, that there was like a few moments where like, oh man, this could have been even cooler if they had done this.
yeah. I have to imagine that it was split screen for the fact that it was also a couch co-op game as
Yeah.
well, which isn't very common nowadays.
Yeah.
But they offered that, which is cool. I just wish they had offered an option to turn off
Yeah.
the split screen.
Imagine a little bit like Uncharted and like a Heavy Rain or Quantum Dreams type game,
Okay,
kind of
that
mashed
sounds
together. Like got kind of third-person action adventure, but with a lot of quick time events, and you're working together, your two players breaking out of jail working together. Anyway, it's really fun. Recommend it. And the coolest part is
Two brothers.
Yeah,
It's just two brothers.
it's two brothers. Only one person has to buy it. The other person plays for free. Anyway,
Also, you get to do chores around an old couple's home.
yeah, you just don't give it away. That's the best part.
That's the ending.
That's the finale. Okay.
So yeah, any of those things, those are all good things people check out or don't. Don't check out Mute, I guess. Check out Two Brothers, or check out, what was it called?
A Way Out.
A Way Out. Check out A Way Out. Don't check out Mute. And Santa Clear Diet and Lemony Snicket. All things that happen.
Man, I mean, we can get into this later, but I really like that show. It's something about like the visual style of it. It just pops. So,
Which one?
It's
Lemony
so
Snicket?
yeah, it is so.
We can do an episode on that.
Yeah,
Let us
maybe
know
do.
if you want to hear about an episode about
That's
us
true.
talking about that one show.
Because I've never read the books, and I am all in on this show. Granted, it's supposed to end after season 3.
Chris doesn't know how to read, so it doesn't say a lot.
Right.
I only listen to audiobooks. I would actually listen to that audiobook if it was narrated by Patrick Warburton.
That would be interesting.
We're just gonna abandon any attempt to avoid spoilers. We found that it's not worth it. So if you don't want to be spoiled, you should probably stop listening. If you don't mind being spoiled or you've already seen the film, continue on. So yeah, Quiet Place came out 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. Oh, and Quiet Place, a family is forced to live in silence while hiding from creatures that hunt by sound.
Well, it's just, okay, so last time we tried to do like a quick descriptor of it, and I was just like, why are we trying to do this off the top of our heads? Let's just give them the IMDb.
Well, I suppose. Yeah, you're right. But anyway, so that's the premise. If you people have probably seen the trailers and know what it's about. Well, let's just get into it. I enjoyed this film. In fact, I've seen this film twice.
Dang, you must have really
yeah.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, both times I saw it for free. Does that matter? But
And by free, he means he just walked in and nobody stopped him.
no, I really enjoyed the film. Like, it's been a while since a film I think has maintained that level of, like, for me anyway, suspension and tension really well throughout its entire running time. I thought it was good performances. The story itself wasn't anything revolutionary, but I thought it was just done well. And anyways, that's
I definitely really liked it. However, the hype on that thing, it was just so large. And at the end of the day, I was like, this is definitely a really solid and cool movie, though I don't think it's quite as unique as everybody pitches it out to be. You know,
well, okay, we'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's like it's a unique movie. I just think that it was done really well, and considering it was John Krasinski's, like, I don't know if it's his directorial debut, but it's probably his first step into like horror. I think that he did a pretty good job. Also, a very smart idea to choose like the farm kind of setting, because there's so many good possibilities for a horror movie and for like a suspenseful thriller to be in that setting. I mean, I look at Signs as a good example of all the things you can kind of do in a farm, and I think it did a really good job of like keeping you tense with every scene, especially when they stepped out of the house, and like when you know, like, okay, there's gonna be a cornfield kind of scene, there's gonna be like this and this and that, and it feels like they hit all those pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I also really like the film.
See,
I don't
there's
think
no
that the
bars.
film was trying to do anything like original. Exactly. It was definitely had its own unique take on the genre. Some of the storytelling was somewhat by the book, but I thought all the world building and kind of just how they told the story was very intuitive. It didn't really have to explain things to the audience. The audience kind of picked it up as the movie progressed, and I really appreciated that.
One thing I like I think just comparing this to the last movie that we saw, which did a lot of narrative storytelling, this was the direct opposite. You learned everything by watching the characters and, you know, paying attention to the movie. You didn't have to be told things. It was more just watching just the settings, reading the articles that you could kind of see on the wall, and just, I really like that version of storytelling in a movie significantly more than what was in Ready Player One.
Dang, it's kind of apples to oranges right there.
Well, I mean, in terms of the world building, yeah, I mean, they did a good job. Even though it wasn't really that subtle. In the couple early on in the montage shots of just like the newspapers and stuff. Again, it was stuff that you could pick out and pick up. It wasn't just narration or, hey, this character going, hey, remember, I guess no one could talk in the movie, but, hey, remember a year ago when the aliens invaded and killed everyone on Earth and we couldn't talk anymore and this and this and that. Well, it was storytelling in a much more authentic kind of organic way.
Yeah.
And I think it goes a long way. It goes a long way in immersing your audience, at least for me.
Yeah, I'd agree. I would also say this might be my favorite performance from Emily Blunt.
Yeah, I thought she was really good, actually. And both kids, actually. Both of the kids I thought were awesome. Even though the girl's getting a lot of credit. Not credit, I mean, deservedly so. She was actually deaf, too. I didn't realize the actress is really deaf. But the son, too, I thought he was, like, really good. A couple, just, like, didn't have a lot of, like, big scenes, but the ones that did stood out to me. Anyways, well, let's kind of go through it a little bit. So the opening, like the prologue, where they're just in the store and the family kind of get to know the family. And you want to kill that little kid, and then guess what? He gets killed.
I will always give props to a movie that is willing to kill a little kid. No, I mean, I will always give props to a movie that's willing to show that there are actual consequences.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. A lot of times, like, you might get, like, a cheaper horror film or whatever, where it's just like, oh, they get off with kind of like a warning, kind of like maybe they get injured a little or something like that. But it's like, no, this is a world where your actions will have consequences. If you make a sound, you put yourself in extreme danger, right? And so it was definitely a really good start to the film, because you're just like, okay, they have a reason to, be really careful. They've seen this go bad, really bad, and it also adds to a lot of the character drama, obviously, later on, between the dad and the daughter and stuff, like, it felt very organic overall. And like I said, it's just always fun to watch a kid get killed.
I was actually surprised that we saw the monster, or the alien, so early. Like, I was kind of expecting them to hold off. I mean, I know we don't get a good shot of it, but you do kind of see, like, I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, and I'm glad that they waited till much later in the film to, like, show, like, the real details of, like, its face and everything. But I didn't expect to see it that early, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, just the little that they did show, I think it was, I mean, obviously it was all setting up, right? And so I think if they had not shown us anything, I don't think we would have been as attuned with the family, right? Because the family knows what's there, and to us, it would have removed us and put a little bit of a distance between us and the emotional, like, place of the family and just kind of what the fear there is. So just by giving us a little, we already get the sense that, okay, this isn't just like, I don't know, some fake thing. Like, we know what this is, and we know it's awful, and we know it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Would you call this a horror film?
I don't know if I'd call it a horror film. I mean, if I had to say horror comedy, then yes. But
like,
I guess
it was definitely. It seemed more of like just like a general thriller drama than. But it's marked as like a horror film everywhere I see it. And it's just like not that that's problematic per se, but it's like it wasn't very scary in the sense of horror. Like, there were suspenseful scenes, but that they always lent more towards like a thriller to me than like.
Oh, I mean, it's kind of one of those nebulous things. How do you define it? Like, do you call Jaws a horror film? Most people would, even though you don't like, right? There's no axe murderer.
Yeah, horror does kind of bring up the ideas that there is running from a killer, or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I did like the design of the monster overall. It just kind of being like a giant ear. Like, that's what I was reading an article, and he's like, the idea was it's supposed to kind of resemble like the inside of your ear and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, and then later in the film when they get into more detail and he's showing how it kind of acts, you kind of could do a good job of filling in the blanks of how this creature is. I just liked that it seems so. It did not belong in this world, and I think it was just a really good job from the art direction, the visual style of not just the alien, but of the setting itself. Like, it's this very rural farm, just like, I don't know, wherever it is, Midwest or, but that alien felt like something out of like Bloodborne or I don't know, Quake, or you know what I mean? Like this does not belong here, and it was very apparent. Like I thought it was just a really well designed kind of contradiction and visuals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought when I first saw it, I thought, okay, this looks a little too much like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. I don't know if any of you guys saw that at all. Like saw it, picked up on that.
I mean, I could kind of see that.
Just because, like, his head is opening up, that kind of deal. Is that what you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't thought of that till you said that, but I could see it now.
Okay. Yeah. But I think they did a good enough job with like having obviously the differences. I kind of expected the way that like considering they obviously knew that sound was the thing that like triggered it, that they wouldn't have more things set up around the farm to like distract them, like as sounds, like I don't know, like some sort of like grenades or something, some sort of way to detonate something to cause more sounds. Yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, they have obviously a pretty complicated system of communication just with like lights. Like you know, they don't ever explain it, but when you hit that switch, it turns the lights red, and that means there's danger, right? So, you know, they do a lot of good stuff like that. And since it's clear that they're pretty good with electronics and just circuitry or wiring and what have you, they would maybe set up like a remote sound alarm that they hit a switch and then it just makes a beacon go off way into the woods to, you know.
Yeah, like that's simple. And they could have a bunch of them set up so that the monsters are always traveling to different spots and like not to them.
Well,
kind of
going into that was, I mean, it didn't make me enjoy the movie any less, but I almost, like, obviously once it starts becoming very clear what their weakness is, you're just like, how did nobody think of this before? They're a giant ear that's tracked by sound. Somebody would have thought, high frequency is something we should definitely try. Like, somebody, there are a lot of smart people in this world. Somebody would have suggested that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, right, if we start breaking it down, like, logically, I think humans would easily find a way to defeat these monsters. But I think one of the things that I like about the film is that it doesn't get too, slogged down into, like, the mechanics of these aliens or the world or anything. It's just, like, yeah, these people are just trying to survive. And, like, yeah, as viewers, we have this, you know, objectivity where, if I was in this situation, I would do, right? But that's not what the film's really about. It's more about this family and their relationships and trying to survive this, both on a very, like, on a real sense, just not get murdered, but then also to survive as, like, a family unit, right? Because there's a lot of tension between the relationships between characters that, you know, is there to threaten to destroy the family.
Yeah, and, like, what it means to be a family. Like, I think that was the main message to take away at the end of it. And, like, again, glad we're in spoilers, but the fact that, like, John Krasinski's character, he had to die, I think, for the movie to really, like, hit home with that kind of message. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I kind of guess I know what you're saying. There had to be, like, that level of sacrifice, you know, because at the end when he reestablishes to the daughter who, you know, swore that he didn't give a crap about her anymore. You know, he's like, I'm doing this for you. I love you. I always have. You know, like, yeah, that had to happen. That was the whole point.
I mean, I kind of got that too. I don't know if he had to die but I do think, right, to me it was less about him showing, I mean, it was about him, like, showing, oh yeah, obviously I still love you too, but I think there was an element of him not trust. It's not that he never loved her, it's that he didn't trust her. Right? And I think at the end when he basically sacrificed himself, he's realized, like, okay, I have to I trust you now to be an adult. You don't need me anymore, and I have to trust that you're able to live on, like, you're able to survive without me. And so I think that's ultimately kind of what it's about.
But also going back to Vince's idea of, like, why don't they have more things? So to distract him off in the distance. So they very clearly know that, I mean, we go to, like, the waterfall, right? And he's like, oh, here, we're freaking fine here. Yeah. So the question becomes, why were they at the farm? Why not be closer to the water?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of, and it's kind of, like, the other thing, like, I would just carry around glass bottles with me everywhere I went, so I could just, like, throw them anytime. Right. It's like, ching, whatever. And there's a certain amount of that is, like, yeah, and I'm sure people have done that, and maybe they do things like that. And there's not like an easy answer. I think to me, the closest I could come up with is just like, you don't really think it's that hard until you're living that, right? Like, I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And I think to an extent that kind of lends itself to parenthood, right? Because it's also, the movie's a lot about parenthood. It's like, well, why don't you just raise your kid like this? Like you haven't had a kid, you have no idea what it's like to raise a kid, right? I mean, well, why did you do that? Why did you punish him for that or not punish him for that? Or why did you give him that and not give him that? Like, well, okay, yeah, obviously it seems easy and perfect to do things on the outside, but when you're living that case every moment of your life, obviously things, not everything you do is going to be perfect and make sense in this logical, way. So I don't know.
You got to do it the best way that you can in each specific moment, kind of thing.
Yeah, just kind of working through the thoughts I had coming out of the movie. Really, not like I don't think any of these that like made me, like I said before, enjoy it any less.
Yeah.
Or I'm not holding these things against the movie, because I mean the movie has to, have things, twists and stuff. It has to put the family in danger, otherwise what's the point of the movie, right? But
yeah,
it's just things I was thinking about. Just like when they were in the grain silo and they were sinking, how come the monster didn't sink? That thing with its mass, you think it would have sank a lot quicker.
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's probably pretty too, I guess. No.
I really enjoyed that scene. I don't know if I've actually seen a scene in a film that's quite like that. I mean, there's like a quicksand scene, but just the idea of like, oh yeah, falling in a silo full of corn grains would be horrifying. Like it was a very suspenseful scene. It was very effective for something that you think, oh, it's just a silo of grains. Like, who cares?
Well, and hundreds of people die every year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a really bad in the Midwest, like in farm. Like,
wait,
I'm not kidding. There's hundreds of people die in farm grain silos.
But what? How?
Yes, because they fall in when they're like milling, or I don't know. I mean,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And maybe not hundreds, but a lot more than you would think.
Okay, I think my last thing that I was thinking about, like in terms of like why this was. Why was the dad so against his daughter going down into his basement? Like, there was literally nothing there except for proof of his love and caring for the family. There's no reason why she shouldn't have gone down there.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that either. And
I mean, I get it's for the revelation at the end, but like,
well, it's not really a revelation because
whatever you want to call it.
You know what I'm saying? But I think to me it was just more about going back to that trust issue, but it was kind of confusing, especially just the geography of the situation, because I didn't wait, what is there two houses? And then it took a second being like, oh, there is two houses. That's what's going on here. Because like, wait, didn't they just flood the basement? And now they're in the basement, and like, why is she sneaking into her own house? Like all these things, I'm like, oh, there's two places. There's a giant farm.
That was confusing for me as well, actually. Yeah.
Also, why don't they just sand the whole ground? Why don't they just put sand on one? Just put sand everywhere.
Well, I think in terms of the house, it was where the wood wasn't creaky.
Oh, yeah,
but
that's true.
Also, man, what a jerk that old guy was. What a jerk. It's just like, hey, I understand you're distressed. I'm here with my kid. You want to die? That's cool. Just let me get out of here.
And that actor, that way he did his little mouth, I just want to punch that mouth. When he's like, like he bunched up his mouth like that. Just like, I don't know.
I wonder. So like, because I don't remember a scene specifically where the monster was like super in somebody's face and they like threw something and made a sound to have it go the other way. You know what I'm saying?
Nobody ever did that. The closest, I think, was when Emily Blunt's character was in the basement with the egg timer. Yeah. However, there was also when she was in the flooded basement and it was right in her face, and then somebody made a sound outside that drew its attention.
Yeah. Well, because I was always expecting, like, okay, this is a random thing to reference, but there's a scene in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets after the basilisk gets blinded by the phoenix. Which
I hate all these words.
If nobody's seen, that's the most magical thing you've ever heard, that sentence. After the basilisk gets blinded by the phoenix, it's like chasing Harry in the tunnels and it's blind, but it has him cornered and it's like it can kind of smell him, but he grabs a rock and throws it down like another tube of the tunnel and it distracts it so that it goes that way. I just expected there'd be a scene kind of like that where like people are kind of making sounds or like if somebody throws something or makes
that's what I
does
mean.
something
like,
to cause a sound in a different area to distract the monster right when it's in their face. Like the egg timer thing is close, but it wasn't quite like the.
I mean, you're right. Emily Blunt should have thrown her baby.
I actually thought the baby was already eaten when she woke up.
Honestly,
Oh,
I
yeah.
was that whole time. I didn't think he was eaten, but I was hoping that
That it was
Chris,
eaten.
why do you hope that babies are?
I was hoping that maybe there'd be like that choice where it's just like she cannot get to the baby without her or it dying, right? And
Oh, also those things
so it's
swimming in the
just-
water is horrifying.
yeah, that was pretty scary.
But there's no. But how would it hear anything in the water?
No, I was gonna say
Yeah.
in the water, sound
hear
carries
better.
better.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't hear anything as well up, but anything in the water, the sound waves are going to carry way better underwater.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Just kind of as a whole, I think one of the things I liked most about the film was like in a movie when a character has to we gotta swim under this tunnel and get to the next area, and you have to like when the character does that, you're like holding your breath also.
yeah,
This film I did that for me, except it was like every single scene. I'm just saying I only breathed like 2 times in the whole film.
well,
Yeah,
like
no,
because
it was-
you don't like you're like
Yeah.
I can't you're like not making sound like yeah.
So I was after I was talking, I saw it with friends the first time, but we were talking or walking out. It's like I think this is the only film that I've been in when the members of the audience, was shushing the film itself. You know what I mean? Like especially when like Emily Blunt is like she's going into labor and she's like breathing really heavy and stuff.
Yeah.
People in the audience were like, "Shut up!" Shh.
I love that though. That's great. Like
Yeah,
that's
no,
the
it's
fact
awesome.
that like a movie, like a horror movie, can do that. Because like if you think about it, like with movies today, like I was so afraid because the audience that saw this movie, that I would say that the average age was like 18, maybe even like they were all teenagers.
You gotta love
like,
those PG-13 horror movies, right, guys? That worked at the movie theater.
Yep.
Well, okay, maybe they're even younger, but like everybody was on their phone before the movie started, and I was like, oh god, I swear, if people are texting or like there's some sort of distraction when this movie, which I know is going to be a movie that's going to have like no sound for most of it, it's going to suck, it's going to ruin the experience. But everybody was engaged, and that has to do with the quality of the film and the way that it was made.
Yeah, definitely. Both times I saw it, it was definitely. I didn't have any of those, distractions or experiences and stuff.
People knew they were on watch in that movie.
That's true, yeah.
Even
They couldn't
people with
get
their
away with
popcorn
anything.
were like,
Yeah.
how can I eat this without making any sound? Oh, I guess I'm not eating my popcorn in this movie. Throw it on the ground.
Well, I was actually thinking, I don't necessarily think this was intended, but I was kind of thinking, like, I wonder if it was a commentary on movie theaters. They're supposed to be a quiet place, and if you make a sound, like, they kill you. Like, that's like a fun metaphor
I like
for a
that.
movie theater itself.
I did. So I was reading an article with John Krasinski, and he was talking about how much fun he had in the audio room after filming it.
Oh.
And he was just like, because it's a movie that takes place in a quiet world, essentially, like, they had so much fun with sound effects and stuff because it was just like crank those suckers up to 11. Let the suspense draw. Like let's let people know how loud the world actually is, even though we can't hear it because we're that much louder.
Yeah.
Like, and so every footstep, even if it was like a soft footstep, you could still kind of hear that footstep, and you're always just like, what does it take to draw one of these things?
I know, you're never quite sure the level. Like, sometimes you're like, oh, that was too... Okay, I guess it wasn't too loud.
We'll survive.
And, yeah.
Do they they'll destroy whatever's making the sound?
Yes.
Like it seems like they hate sound. Whatever it
Yeah.
is about them, they don't like
Yeah,
sound.
I guess that was one question I had too.
They don't
It definitely
eat.
really shows it. It implies they eat it. They're hunting that, so they're eating
Yeah.
it, but they don't show it
No,
outright.
they don't eat.
Are you sure? Like when they
Yeah.
kill the old man, it shows him going back with his mouth into the.
They
carcass.
just kill for the most part. They don't.
But
eat.
how do you why do you
How do
think
you,
that?
how do you know?
I was reading articles, meta.
Oh well.
Oh,
Well, then
he's
what do
got
they
the
do?
inside
Like-
info.
Because there was the another good way you can view that was there was the woman, right? The dead woman that
Yeah.
your scrunchy faced old man.
Yeah, I guess she wasn't eating or anything.
Yeah,
like
she
that,
was
I
all of her
suppose.
guts were just lying out. You don't pass up a meal like
But I
that.
suppose
That's what
then,
your
like
goal
in,
is.
in that case, then what do they think the waterfall is? Why don't they just go constantly attack the water?
That's what I was thinking.
Splashing
Just, like,
around.
flailing at the waterfall
Yeah.
nonstop.
like a dog in the ocean. Just-
Or I mean, like say you have a drone with a microphone on it. Like, isn't that the ultimate tool?
Yeah, just like lure it around everywhere. I did, well, yeah. I mean, I did like actually how that wasn't so much of a, like, it was an interesting dystopia, future where it wasn't like we're back to sticks and forks and sticks and whatever, stones. because they still had like their iPod and they were
Yeah.
listening to music and there was still electronics, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess you could still have a lot of modern like conveniences to an extent. It's just like it's just like such a different kind of world that all these things you don't really think about in terms of how it affects, the audio output and stuff.
I would have liked to see what would have happened if one of these things got loose in like a big city. Would it just like go berserk?
Yeah.
Like what if you dropped one in the middle of Times Square?
But I feel like that was implied that had happened, and you just have to assume it was a massacre
Yeah, they just
through the newspapers.
killed everything.
Because, I mean, obviously in the beginning you see him trying to get in contact with the world, so clearly this is a worldwide epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it's not... They were killing everybody and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the cities. That happened. Maybe we'll get a sequel, and it'll be their landing in New York City.
I also heard that this was almost going to be part of the.
I was going to bring
Cloverfield
that up.
universe?
I was going to
Yeah.
bring that up.
It kind of smelled like it could have been.
The director or the writers, sorry, the writers came out and said that back when they were doing it or writing it, they were definitely the option was there for it to be
Paramount approached them with it,
a Cloverfield movie while they were working on 10 Cloverfield Lane and things like that. They're like, oh yeah, this could kind of fit in here, But then in the end, they decided this is unique enough that we can market it without the Cloverfield.
They want it to be its own IP and stuff, which I'm glad they did.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm. So another thing we kind of talk about is the pacing. So aside from the prologue, nothing really happens in terms of with the monsters until halfway into the film, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's more or less kind of standard film story structure, but usually there's something that kind of ups the threat level as you're going, but nothing until she steps on that nail. Like it's like 40 minutes of just them living their lives. And you don't, despite that, it never feels like it's less or boring or slow or anything, right?
I mean, kind of. I mean, you see on the board that there's 3 in the area, right?
Yeah.
And I think before she steps on the nail, we see the one kill the old man.
It's right beforehand. But
because I think that's why he was even close enough in that area to suddenly get to Emily Blunt's character so quickly. But
well, anyway, so then that half point fit, and then the whole rest of the movie is just nonstop. Like, you are already building up tension, even though nothing has happened yet, right? You just are so ingrained in the world, and you understand the threat. And so then when stuff starts happening, it's just like a non-stop marathon or sprint, I guess. It's a marathon distance sprint because you just never could release. The waterfall, which is before that moment, though, is it's so cathartic when that you're like, oh my god, human voice. Like, it just, you would never think that that has such an impact on you.
That's basically how you have to write stories, right?
Yeah.
Like, there really isn't ever... I mean, it's really rough on the audience to just have it just constantly build. You have to have that release point. Otherwise, your audience is just going to get tired out and they're going to be so exhausted by the time you even get to the good stuff.
So I wondered, the hearing aid thing that the girl had, did it pretty much make her untouchable to the aliens?
Well, if she had it on.
When she had it on. So, say John Krasinski or somebody else put one of those things on too, would it have been like a protective shield?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get the sense that she was invincible, because it kind of makes a point the monster destroys the TV at the end, so there's a certain it just basically goes into even enraged mode.
Yeah, I think if when it was happening in the basement, she was very much touchable, right? Because it's a very enclosed space. This thing is just freaking out. So she definitely... It's not like it makes her... it's not going to come close to her. It puts it in a lot of pain and causes it to want to get away from it, right? So when you first see it happen, it had a very clear out because it was just out in the open. It was just not this way, not this way. But when it's in the basement, it's just I got nowhere to go. Oh, God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, so okay, I lied. I had one more thing that was very weird to me. So there's this, at the end, the kids are near the truck, John Krasinski's near a tractor thingy, and he's going, and the thing's crouched in the rafter for whatever reason, and then it just swipes at him, even though he's not really making a noise.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't... And the other thing too is because usually in a situation like that, especially in horror or thriller movies, it's as a result of a character making a mistake or they're punished. But like, was his mistake? He went back for the weapon. You know what I mean? Like, why? Like, are we to imply that if he kept walking with his kids, he would have been fine or not?
Maybe, I don't know.
You know
Yeah, that was a little odd, and especially since he swings at it, the actual goings on of that. What happened? He swings at it, and it hits him, knocks the thing away, and then it shows that he's injured in his like stomach. I was like, wait, what just happened? I was a little just confused by the action of the event, like that scene. I didn't get it.
Also,
what occurred?
Also, immediately following that, the big scene, right? Do you feel like the scream was really necessary? Did it have to be a scream? Like, what if it, instead of him doing the sign language, I've always loved. I'm signing right now, very terribly. But instead of doing like the sign language, like, would it have actually been more powerful if he had spoken that and that had been like what told him? He's like.
Well, she wouldn't have heard it.
Yeah. That's
what?
She's deaf.
Chris,
that's
deaf.
the whole thing. Is she's a tough.
Oh right.
Jesus, Chris.
Oh right.
No, but I think that the scream. Well, the reason why I actually liked it is because it felt so like somebody who hasn't screamed in such a long time and is just like letting it out, kind of thing. Like
he had just screamed at the waterfall.
Well, but I mean, like, okay, it's a moment where he knows that
she was deaf, Vince. No, I agree. It did feel like it. I mean, again, I think it kind of goes back to him just like a release of just the responsibility, right? Of, I mean, not in a bad way, not in a way of like, oh, I'm gonna abandon my family, but in a way of like, all right, I'm leaving it to them now. I have to like, and that just everything that he had bottled up, he was able to just kind of.
Why'd he put down the axe though? Give it one final swing, you know.
Well, he had to get their attention first. I don't know. Because that's what got its attention at first, was to drop the axe. I don't know. He could have just said, hey, you, hey. And then it turned around. Hey,
come and get me, hey.
Well, I don't know. So say he did that and then he threw the axe like into the house. Wouldn't it have made a loud noise?
But it was, I mean, first of all, it was a short distance. Then we saw these things are pretty quick.
Man, all they needed to do was like give all the creatures like headphones or something.
Maybe play some Wings songs.
Two things I really liked and / didn't like, because it's like, oh, dang you movie, I know what's happening here. So the first one was the nail, right? And he was like, you're kind of like raising a middle finger to the movie. You're just like, okay, that's not coming back into play.
Well, obviously, that's
right.
kind of like...
And then they showed it again later in the movie.
I know,
you're like,
no.
And
you think the kids are like, tell your dumb kid not to step on it.
I thought they were gonna step on it. That would have
And
been
then
so
they don't
funny.
step on it. So then I'm thinking, oh, is the alien gonna step on it? Is that their one weakness? Nails in their claw. They found out. But then it never comes in play.
So the nail thing, obviously, it's kind of like that whole thing was so obvious, but it was good. It was good. And they kind of fooled me because they spent so much time emphasizing how the river could protect you. I could have swore they would have ended back there in the climax.
Oh, yeah. No, I could have seen
They
that.
didn't, but I thought I could have sworn they were.
Well, actually, going on the nail thing, I don't know if this was intentional. I think it was, and I'm not quite sure what to make of it quite yet, but there was a lot of foot imagery in the movie. Mm-hmm. The very first shot of the film is little feet running across the ground. They're constantly showing, obviously it's all about, they're always barefoot, and they're showing how they're stepping in the sand, and then obviously with the nail in the foot, and like there's just all these feet imagery throughout the film. And I think it's, pairing it with like the weird claws that they're so alien and different, but also just like, well, when does that mean they have to be grounded, or they're, it just like is a weird thing, which I thought was intentional, but I was just kind of, I don't know what you guys thought about that.
I actually didn't really think about that much, but now that you're like reminding me, now I kind of remember all the imagery of it. So yeah.
I think it was just re-emphasizing like every step has to be so cautious, right? It's just like, and Emily Blunt was not very cautious, even though she tore that nail off.
Did it kind of remind you at all? I mean, some of the imagery, maybe I don't know necessarily.
Also, why would they see a new nail? Oh, let's make that step a good place to start.
It Follows. Did you get any It Follows vibes from this movie?
Not too much.
Nah, not really.
Nah.
No.
Well, damn it. That's another good horror movie that I like. I like the
is,
kind of movie where it's like this thing.
I did not
It-
see
obviously-
any naked men on roofs. That didn't happen.
Well, if anything, I thought it reminded me of Signs. Actually, I think they're kind of like in a rural, larger home area. And
Well, that's like I was saying. That setting is really good for like a thriller, for a movie where you're always on the edge of your seat. I love like the cornfield setting. I really hate that scene in E.T. when he gets scared in the cornfield. That's the scariest scene of all time in cinematic history, in my opinion. But yeah, I just think it's a good setting for horror movies.
You heard it
I can
here
see that.
first, gents. E.T. is the scariest movie of all time.
It's a horror.
Honestly, that
Also,
that
like,
creature, that's the most frightening monster ever created. E.T.
They're related to the sound monsters in Quiet Place. The corn, like, it makes a point that it's a working farm. Like, how do they harvest all that corn without making a noise? Like, dang.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the whole thing. Why the farm? Because you see,
I think to me, it's just like that's their home. What are they going to do?
You see in the distance, like all these other people that still. It's just like it seems like being underground is a pretty good thing to be.
Well, I suppose, but again, like it's one thing to say, like, "Oh yeah, I would," say, but it's your home. This is where you live. Like, you're not really safe anywhere. Like, I guess, you know what I mean? In the sky, you go,
Yeah.
let's live in a plane, or
Let's live on a boat
or something. But no, you're not going to leave your home. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's harder to leave your home than I think most people think it is.
Yeah, and I mean, in the beginning of the film, they have 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, how are we going to take 3 kids on this crazy adventure, unknowns?
Especially without car, like, right? You're not going to be able to drive a car
Yeah.
or anything. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Walk to an island or something?
How irresponsible of them was it to have that kid? Like that was such a high risk.
I thought about that too.
That was such an unnecessary high risk at that point.
Any babies at
They
that
already
point is like, oh,
they already
God.
have 2 kids, and so in terms of that, they're like our generational thing. It's already guaranteed to pass on, whatever. But yeah, and then it's just like, what would be really safe? Let's have another one because nobody ever screams during childbirth or anything.
Babies are known to be quiet.
That baby for months is just gonna cry all the time.
I don't know. That baby was really silent for being completely newborn.
Well, they just have
It's probably
that
dead.
baby's going to be gassed.
Yeah,
before-
just gas it up.
Baby's going to live the first 3 years of its life 90% of the time unconscious.
I just figured that was oxygen.
Well, oxygen is a gas.
It could be anything they want it to be, but I assumed it was some sort of like laughing or knockout gas.
Yeah.
I figured it was oxygen, so they could close the freaking box on this thing to keep it muffled.
Oh.
And
Yeah,
not,
I think
and
it
not
was,
suffocate.
but still, oxygen is the gaseous.
I don't know if that's better or worse than the knockout gas. Knock out your baby. They should sell those in stores. It probably sell.
Yeah.
Well, any other thoughts? Any final thoughts on A Quiet Place?
It would have been interesting,
No,
but fairly on the verge of like comedy if there was a specific sound that soothed the creatures. Like, I don't know what exactly.
You mean
but,
if
like,
Black Widow came? Sun's getting real low, big guy. Sun's getting real low.
or what is that? Mars Attacks, where they play the certain song and
the
it kills
certain
them.
music.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know, something like that. Like
it
if
Tony
they played
Bennett?
like,
Wasn't that just a high pitched song?
Oh yeah.
You
"Give
know,
me the beat, boys, and free my soul."
And they all start.
This explode.
that ending. He's just like, here's this
yeah.
giant suspenseful thriller thingy, and we're gonna end it the way that a lot of horror movies decide to end themselves. A switch I'm now a badass.
Oh, I thought it was more like an action ending. Like I felt like.
But that's what I mean. It's like you have this thriller, and then they do what a lot of people do, where it's just like, we got the secret. Let's get them, cock the shotgun, cocky face. Now they're invincible, right? Like,
I guess I don't know. I didn't think it was a normal horror ending. That was just me. I just thought it was like, oh, that's like obviously it's a complete reversal from
it's a normal
their power position.
Sci-fi Channel horror movie ending.
Well, yeah.
I guess.
we
Not
got
watching a lot of
we
those.
got these Sharknadoes. We're gonna toss dynamite into the tornado.
Send out the word. We know how to take him down.
Yeah.
Okay, let's close it out. What would you guys say your overall rating for the movie is?
No, we don't
Sean,
want
you
to
go
rate
first.
it.
We're not gonna do those anymore.
Well, then let's.
We could
how
just
many-
say we opened up with whether we liked it or not, and everybody said they liked it. We don't need to grade it, you know.
I
Who
mean,
are
I'm not
we?
saying we should
Who are
talk
we
about
to
it,
grade
talk
this
about
movie?
it in some final thoughts.
Yeah,
I just don't think we
yeah,
need to
we-
rate it. Is what
I'd give
That
it
doesn't
5
need to be
John
our thing.
Krasinski's.
Okay.
Out of how many?
I will say about John Krasinski's
12.
performance, he did just seem like Jim, a little more rugged,
Paul Bunyan, Jim.
right? Jim from the Op. He just felt like, yeah, that's probably like if Jim
Yeah.
and Pam got married and moved to a farm,
And then got
that's what
divorced
hap-
and married
then
Emily Blunt.
aliens invaded. That's what would have happened.
That's Mary Poppins for you.
What?
And-
Oh,
what?
Emily Blunt.
Well, you guys know that John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are married,
married.
right?
Yeah.
What?
Right. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, good job, John Krasinski. You can stay married to Emily Blunt. You've earned it.
Well, no, he's dead. He actually died in
Oh.
real life.
Oh.
Free sacrifice for that was the last shot they filmed during.
Oh, one thing we haven't talked about is how a lot of people are picking up a political message out of this movie. Even though John Krasinski and Emily Blunt swear that they didn't create it with a political message in mind, people are actually pulling a political message out of it in a similar manner of like Get Out and stuff. You know, like they view it as kind of like a metaphor for, you know, like how opinionated people are nowadays and how now it feels like with the way our country is, we're just being kind of told to shut up, you know?
Oh, I could see that. I if anything, I took more of a commentary on kind of gender roles. I'm not kidding too much. I'm kind of saying that, but a little bit, right? Because by the end of the film, he's very traditional dominant male patriarch, right? And not necessarily in a toxic way, but right, it's a very
Always
normative.
gets you killed.
And throughout the film, like you could argue that he doesn't bring the girl to the waterfall because he doesn't trust her, all that stuff. But ultimately, he's reinforcing this idea that the boy is going to be the one to take care of the family. But by the end of the film, the final shot is the boy in a very feminine, motherly role carrying the baby, and you have the women, the one with power, who are able to, you know, use force to take down the monster. So I thought it was like, that can't be an accidental thing. There was definitely some intent, I think, in some of those roles.
That kid was afraid of everything.
I mean, yeah. I would be afraid of those things too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
well,
he
it's
was-
kind of like in
he
the
was
same way
afraid
that,
of
like,
a fish.
well, like in Avengers, like Thanos, his story is all about vanity, you know, in the same way that, you know, today in America, people just want the next, like, piece of jewelry. Thanos, he just wants all those cool stones. So it's all about vanity. It's not about the destruction of Earth.
I don't think that's what Thanos is about.
He just wants cool jewelry. That's all, right?
Hey, tune in next episode for a discussion of Avengers Infinity War.
Since we're doing this about every 2 weeks, that'll be right after that movie comes out. However, let's go back on the topic. So one more time.
No, I think we were good.
That's what I was trying to do.
That was.
God
Sean
damn
was
it.
a good
Progress
segue.
segue
That was
into
a
the
segue.
end of the show.
That was segue.
No.
All right. Well,
We
no-
segue when I say we
In any
segue.
case, Quiet Place
Segues
was
are fun.
recommend it. Check it out. For the most
Quietly.
part, we'll think you'll get a good thrill out of it.
I don't know what you get out of it. I liked it, though.
Well, one thing's for sure. It sure gave us something to talk about.
We just end on. That's our sign out.
Yes.